I just want to welcome everyone to Academy for Creating Excellence. This is part of our Parent Cafe series, and this is our workshop within the series, which is Parenting in White Spaces. You can go to the next slide, Chris. All right, next one, you can go ahead. So Anita knows all about us. Carrie, you are new to this space. And so I just want to thank you, Carrie. Carrie is a parent who is parenting a Black son. So I think that this information will be great for you to how to navigate those hallways for little Kean. And so you are welcome into this space today. So for Carrie, who you don't know, Academy for Creating Excellence is a non-for-profit in South Seattle that exists to prepare men of color, and we work with middle school and high school students for excellence through core values of family, academics, motivation, and environment. Our mission is to provide high quality services and support of men of color, fostering safe spaces to facilitate their growth, to best understand themselves as viable role citizens. And underneath that, we have adult programs. So that's our youth programming. And then we have adult programming, and Parent Cafe fits underneath our adult programming. And our goal is to increase parents' ability to have positive educational experiences and interactions with teachers and other educational leaders for the benefit of their children's educational, mental, and physical success. We believe that parents are wonderful, are amazing people, and we want to show up for them in this way, having relevant, timely workshops, fun social events, and useful resources that benefit the entire family, so parents can show up great for their families and communities. And so what's so special about this particular program that is ran by Black parents for Black parents. And so, Carrie, welcome into our space, girl.
Thank you for having me.
Next one. And so we have a quote. And so in our youth programs, every youth program is started out with a quote for today. And so this is a quote that we have used before, but it's so wonderful for today's workshop. And this quote is, "Parents are the ultimate role models for children. Every word, every movement, and action affects. No other person or outside force has greater influence on a child than a parent." Mm-hmm. And this is from our brother Bob. And this is just a timely quote. And so now I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today. My husband, Mike Thomas, who is with us today. Mike is also the founding pastor of Radiant Covenant Church in Renton, which is a multi-ethnic church focusing on racial reconciliation. And then he's also the founder of Impact the Culture LLC, which is also an organization that focuses on anti-racist training for corporations, non-for-profits, schools, teachers. And so that's the arena that Mike Pasamak works in. And we are excited to have him with us as we decide this sometimes impossible, seeming overwhelmingly space of our children and our Black children in spaces where they're being taught and led by majority white people. So welcome.
It's an honor to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So how are you today?
I am looking like the backdrop of our home office. Feeling a little messy. I'm tired, but yet I'm functional. It's a functional space. My spirit is feeling very functional.
Okay.
It's just a lot going on.
Okay.
But I am honored to be here, honored to have this conversation with you.
Yes.
on what I think is a very timely and important subject.
I totally agree with you. And I think that I'm so glad that you said that you feel messy, because I think that when we have this topic, a lot of us parents feel, just not balanced about, how to have these conversations. They're difficult for us to have when somebody is perpetrating against us as adults. And when it's our children, then you add emotion. And
Yes.
and then you have to engage and interact in that way. And so these can be really messy experiences for all of us. And so what we want to do is kind of kick out our, so first I want to say, number one, you all can interrupt us anytime if you have any questions, feel free. But as we start this workshop, what we want to do is kick off story time. And our story of our experience having a child in being taught in a majority white school by majority white teachers that are led by majority white administration is not a fun story. We actually have a really traumatic story, and our story could be a little extreme, but it was an extreme experience for us. So we want to share our story, but first we want to say up front that we are not experts on this topic.
You're kidding. You're not an expert?
Nope, but we
give me my money back.
But we are parents. We are parents who experience trauma in educational spaces with white teachers in leadership. And this workshop is designed to encourage parents to care for themselves as they will for their children.
Absolutely.
And then also to acknowledge that school ain't supposed to be stressful like this for our children, for no children, for any of our children. It shouldn't be stressful like this. And you are not crazy that you feel like this is a extreme stressful situation. You're not crazy. We're with you. We are walking alongside of you. And I'm glad that ACE created a space like this for us to interact with our parents on this kind of level. And so we are going to kick off our story. So I just want to say that we have, Anita knows our story. We have a little unique story than others because we are from Chicago, Illinois. And if you don't know much about Chicago, one thing you should know is that Chicago is extremely segregated. And so when I say it's extreme, there's a white side, there's a black side, there is an Italian side, there's a Chinese side, then there's a Japanese side. Is strictly broken up in culture and race.
Yeah, I would add that Chicago still ranks as the third most segregated city in the country. And so just in comparison to where we are now in the Seattle land area, we know that this area is definitely divided, I should say, rather, by neighborhoods. So you have Ballard, you have Queen Anne, so on and so forth. You have Rainier Beach, blah, blah, blah. Literally in Chicago, just to piggyback what Kim is saying, neighborhoods, even their name, have an ethnic distinction to give you an idea of who lives in that neighborhood or who is the primary ethnic group of that neighborhood. So from the South Side, which is equal to Black people, the South Side of Chicago and the West Side are Black people. But then you have Ukrainian Village, you have Little Italy, you have a Chinatown, you have Koreatown. I mean, it's very, very segregated. Yeah.
And so in saying that, so Mike and I grew up on the South Side of Chicago. So our only experience has been being taught by Black people and being led by Black people. So we've always attended schools that were 100% African-American. Leadership, all of that has been African-American. Then our children went to school on the South Side, and that was their same experience. It wasn't until we moved here in 2013 that we went into a school district that was not all Black. So I don't think we wasn't tripping about it. I mean, it was just like, So one of the things you also have to know as Black people from the South Side of Chicago is that when white people do stuff or we experience stuff that is created for white people, we automatically think that it's going to be better for us, that we're going to benefit from that.
Mhm.
And it's going to be better for our kids if our kids are in those kind of environments. So bringing that Chicago perspective into Renton, where we was living at, we thought, oh, this is going to be great. Our kids are going to have access to all of these different resources, and they're going to be able to do these things and things that they were never. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, they would never be able to do in Chicago. Go ahead.
Let me also add this caveat that it wasn't the Stark. We went from 100% African American homogeny from Chicago to Renton.
Mhm.
We had a buffer of about 2.5 years where they were in the second most diverse zip code in the nation.
Yeah.
And yet the child that we're highlighting still thrived
Mhm.
because even though it was multi-ethnic, there
Mhm.
was a lot of cultural competency
Yeah.
that allowed him to continue to thrive.
We're still Black teachers in leadership and
Exactly.
Black teachers and Black leadership at this school.
Correct.
And so when we got here, our first two children had no problems. They were able to go through school. That's because the first two children the first child was so laid back, nothing affected him. He just went through. The second child is a people pleaser. She loves to be the teacher's pet. So she excelled it in this school. Our third child, he is not like any of those things. And he is quick to confront and identify issues and try to correct these issues, have you. And so he started the elementary school in second grade. And here in this school, in the district, Kent School District, in second grade. And that's when we started to have problems. We've never had problems with him before in school. And that's when we started getting phone calls and emails from teachers about his behavior. And the first couple of years, you know what, I'm not sure about you, but I know I didn't immediately think about that it was racist behavior.
No, and I think that's
Mhm.
because as parents, and particularly those who serve in ministry and in the nonprofit
Mhm.
sector, we're used to dealing with people.
Mhm.
And I've personally had experience dealing with kids and young people, whereas we developed the early sensitivity of not being like those kind of parents that think your kid can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted to be fair and
Mm-hmm.
equitable. We know our child just like you know
Mhm.
your children. You know what they're culpable of, you know what they're capable of,
Yeah.
you know what they're not. So
Mhm.
you always try to lean with this perspective that we've always held, with teachers spending 6 to 8 hours a day with your kid. Whether we want to admit it or not, they're basically co-parents.
Mhm.
They're spending this time with your kids, making this
Mhm.
investment. So
Mhm.
we like to, in an optimistic world, assume the best,
Mhm.
unless there's something glaring and obvious
Mhm.
that is out of order.
Yeah.
So, but to Kim's point, so coming in with what we thought was a relatively healthy perspective
Mhm.
of partnering with these educators,
Mhm.
making sure that our kids were nurtured and cared for,
Mhm.
it became very apparent
Mhm.
very quickly that something else was going on. And it was pretty traumatic.
It was.
At first, it's like, okay, you're hearing these reports about behavior, so you naturally talk to your child,
Mhm.
X, Y, and Z. We can't have that. You're supposed to go to school, get your
Mhm.
education,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. But it was so consistent
Mhm.
that we honestly had to say, this does not sound like our child.
Yeah, but it was consistent over years. So he started there at second grade.
Yeah.
He doesn't get promoted to fifth grade. So every single year we were having issues with teachers. It was so bad that one year they stopped teaching him at all. They allowed him to walk the halls. till we figured out. I was like, why? One time I showed up, because then after a while you start doing drive-bys, right? You started popping up at the school, making sure, everything is okay. I see this child that belongs to us walking hallways. And I'm like, why are you in the hallway? Well, the teacher told me to get out the class. And so I got out the class.
So the crazy part is Gideon, our youngest, who we're referencing, historically, I mean, I don't know how much you can use historically from the second grade, but he has been a straight A student. And actually, prior to moving, there was serious conversations about him qualifying to skip a grade.
Mhm.
So we're talking about a highly intelligent young man,
Mhm.
highly gifted.
Mhm.
And I think the first warning sign for me, outside of just the constant
Mhm.
alleging of his
Mhm.
behavior,
Mhm.
was that his grades deeply declined.
Mhm.
And that's what led me to say, okay, I think something deeper is going on
Mhm.
here. And we had to change our
Mhm.
language,
Mhm.
which is kind of, I guess, I don't want to jump the gun about tools,
Yeah.
but we had to start challenging the district to say, why is this only happening here? Like he was
Mhm.
involved in AAU ball.
Mhm.
He was highly involved in his church's children's ministry.
Mhm.
But it was only at school was these problems happening. And
Mhm.
for us, we was like, okay,
Mhm.
usually bad behavior is pretty consistent.
Mhm.
Why is it only happening here? Why is his disengagement only seeming to happen here?
Yeah.
And we had to start asking the district those questions as we were trying to obviously advocate for our child and make sure that he
Yeah.
had the best environment,
Mhm.
or to make sure that we were doing our
Mhm.
part to help
Yeah.
him if he was doing things
Yeah.
that was impeding on his matriculation and the matriculation of his classmates.
Yeah.
But it became very clear to us very quickly
Mhm.
that it was the environment that he was
It
in.
was then.
Another thing
You
is,
gotta tell me what the principal said about him.
I
Okay,
don't
go
know
ahead.
what story you're
Okay,
talking about.
okay. I'm gonna see all that when you're
But
done.
the first issue we had with an educator, it was clear that there was not only some cultural competency that was
Mhm.
severely lacking. Unfortunately, this teacher was having their own kind of cataclysmic life issues where they were on the verge of a nervous breakdown. That's unfortunate, whether, regardless of your ethnic background, black, white,
Mhm.
Asian, what have you. We our heart went out to this person, but at the same time, Gideon was the victim of an unhealthy educator, that the school district was very slow in dealing with that reality, which they all had validated was true, that this teacher was not or should not have been in a classroom. On top of that, with Gideon being one of two, if that children of color in that classroom, those two kids were always being picked on or called out. It would be ridiculous things because he finished his schoolwork early in the classroom, because again, he's highly educated. I mean, he's a highly gifted kid. When he would finish his work, he would make basketball shooting motions because he's practicing his jump shot. He's always played basketball. And I'm bringing that up because we were originally getting calls that the teacher was complaining that Gideon was doing distractive behavior. And when we got to the bottom of it, he wasn't audibly loud. He wasn't messing with any of his classmates. He was in the back of the classroom practicing his jump shots quietly because his work had already been completed. And we had to honestly ask the teacher, how was he being a distraction if he's quiet, keeping to himself? He finished his work and he's practicing he's doing air shots, not distracting you in the back of the class because he's finished. As a matter of fact, our question went from how is that a distraction to what are you doing to fulfill the needs of this kid? If you're telling me that that's all that's happening, and it's after he does his work that there's nothing left, and for some reason him shooting air shots is distracting.
Yeah. And so that's just one of the instances that we had with the teachers. Another one is this, one of the teachers said that he was aggressive and he threatened her,
Oh yeah.
threatened her life. And so, of course, when you hear that, your emotions just spike, right? You rush into the school. You want to make sure that you protect your child. And, I'm on my way. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to put him in therapy. He's threatened. And once we talked to the teacher, I asked her, what did he say? What did he say to threaten your life? And she said, he said he didn't have to listen to her. So the amazing relief I felt at that moment that he did not say, I'm gonna stick you up. I ain't had no knife, nothing. That's what I was concerned about. And then we had to have a conversation about words and how typically white people age our Black children and expect a level of maturity from our children that they don't respect from their own. And so that has been one of the larger conversations I've had with many of his teacher. And then so to close up our story time, because this story, we can go forever about the story. But another instance was when the principal told us that the school was only capable of dealing with children who are compliant. They did not know how to deal with children who were non-compliant. And Gideon was one of those children that they considered that was non-compliant. And so they did not have the tools to educate someone like Gideon. So we had to deal with that too. So then he goes to middle school. It was a whole big thing about middle school. Middle school got more aggressive. The teachers got more aggressive towards Gideon. We had one incident when a teacher shouted at Gideon and said he would never be nothing. And Gideon shouted back, "You are racist." And so we had to deal with that. We also had instances when the school called us in and had all the teachers line up and tell Gideon what they didn't like about him.
Yeah, and let's pause right there. So Carrie knows me.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot begin to describe the anger.
Mm-hmm.
And how traumatic and hurtful it was, not only for us, but to witness our child
be diminished
that way. And I mean, it was horrific. I mean, we were there as his parents, and they actually thought this was going to be a meeting where teachers could come in the room, watch this, not even all be there during the meeting. They just came in for their turn to pick on Gideon and left. And they actually thought that was how that meeting was going to go. But Carrie, they had no idea that his dad and mom was his dad and mom. Because we are gifted, we are proficient in changing the narrative and changing the focus.
Yeah.
And we had to call out to them how dysfunctional, how toxic, and how racist it was that they did this to a Black child, and thought so little of the Black family that they thought it was okay to do that in front of us. And once we highlighted how wrong that was, and I don't know if it's that they caught an epiphany or they recognized the level of lawsuit that they were facing, that they got what we like to call in Black culture some act right, readjusted, apologized, and then and this, I think this is an example that alludes to the purpose of a conversation like this. The principal made a suggestion that because she went to a 2-day training on diversity and inclusion,
which is different than anti-racism,
that now she is this woke, apparent, sensitive person, and we had to let her know in loving truth, you failed miserably. So you know, these and I think the sad thing is as we want to remind you of our 3 kids together, this seemingly only happened to our youngest, which was just very, very dysfunctional, but also spoke to his courage and conviction and strength, that he has still persevered. He's still a 4.0 GPA student, Ivy League school bound, in spite of all of these incidents. And I can't imagine where he would be if his parents didn't advocate for him. If we wasn't there to hold him accountable for his actions, whenever that was relevant. And unfortunately, in this story, that was a rarity. And yet be able to continue to push for excellence in his education, in spite of so many things that happened to him that could have justified him writing off anybody that was not Black, educating him. Last thing I'll say, and then Kim, you can guide it. Again, so this happened during his elementary and middle school process. It got so toxic in middle school. We were, thanks to our network, we were able to find a diverse school to transfer him to. And immediately that first year, grades shot through the roof. Issues went from crazy to non-existent. It was unbelievable. He goes to high school, and he starts high school at a school that had the same type of diversity, both in the student body and in the leadership. Everything is fine. Then in the course of 2 years, this school becomes almost predominantly white in terms of its faculty. And I don't want to say that issues started immediately, but it was like things shifted. And it wasn't just getting, it was a lot of the students, which remind you, his high school is a very, very diverse student body. And he is far from the only student having these complaints once the leadership no longer reflected the student body.
Yep. And so part of our workshop is we wanted to share our story, which we have. But now we're back in a situation where Gideon is going to a school that's now led again by majority white teachers and white administration. And now we're taking what we learned from when he started in elementary school, and then we're applying all of those strategies to where he is now. And so we're going to get to that. We've learned a lot over the past years. I had hoped that we never had to use these strategies again, but you just don't know. And so here we are again advocating for Gideon, but in a much more wiser way. We have where our toolbox is full. And so we have lots of different tools to use. And so we do use them. So that's our story. Does anybody have any questions about our story? Because we can move forward. Okay. All right. So our next thing that we want to talk about is recognizing trauma. And we want to focus on race-related stress. And race-related stress is simply the stress that you feel when you're encountered racism on an ongoing basis. And what we have learned is that navigating these white spaces become more difficult when you're not acknowledging your own stress and trauma that you have as a Black person in America. And so it colors everything that you do. It impacts and it screws with your perspective, all of that when you're in these spaces, when you have to advocate, because you're coming from a place that's super emotional. You hurt for yourself, you hurt for your child, and it also raises up a lot of emotion, past emotion of stress and anger and all of those things that we face when we are targeted in a racist mode of things. And so for adults, the way that race-related stress is manifest in us is physical, emotional, and even spiritual. And we're not going to go like way forefront in spirituality or things like that, but there are things about how we're connected with community that is also there's on a spiritual level. It's how we make relationships and how we get along with others. And so it impacts that. Physically, hypertension, overeating, unhealthy eating. I am the worst. I am the worst. I love flaming hot cheese puffs. And when I am stressed, I am going to Winco and get the big bag.
If I come home and our hands like, yo, we in trouble. Oh my God. What's happening?
So we all are in it. It infects us some kind of way, just in our health. Literally, racism. I've read studies how experiencing racism literally breaks down our body, and it causes all of these things inside our body. So we have to acknowledge that. Once we acknowledge it, we find ways to address it and fix it. And then emotionally, depression, anxiety, anger, aggression, all those kind of things. You know, I am one of those parents that I am looking for something to happen. And so, and I just go for it, y'all. And so those are the things. So we have to recognize that we are all impacted by racism. It's not, and a lot of times we don't get an opportunity to call it out when we see it. And so we internalize it, and then it just sits. I don't know about you all, but it sits in the bottom of my stomach like a rock until I'm able to address it. So some of the impacts of the parenting, race-related stress, how it impacts your parenting is this thing called imposter syndrome. Is how it's because you in the imposter syndrome is basically says you have been impacted by racism so much that now you would doubt your ability to succeed in white spaces. You don't even think you're worthy to be able to speak up and claim your own power in these spaces. And so that is one of the impacts. The other one is overly alert. You're like looking out for danger and for negative experiences. And that's me. I own that up. I own that.
I was going to acknowledge, Kim is naturally a defender and a protector in our household. And so it only gets exacerbated and heightened when you feel like you're under this perpetual trauma. I as well, you know, it's a natural, you have a natural default of leaving out of what you feel are the safety of your home, and you even lead with defense, not offense, going out into the world. And that is perpetuated with your kids because it's a sense of trying to keep them safe, trying to protect them. But I think I don't want to gloss over the importance of that, what you described as the imposter syndrome. We have seen that play out in a lot of different ways, even with previous generations. Whether it's, you know, the generational racism, the keep your head down and don't get in the way of white people, that kind of like survival mode. That really has been what's the word I want to use? It's really been kind of handed down generationally to generational, stemming back from child slavery. Just it's a survival tactic. But it does create that imposter syndrome where you've been exposed to racism so much you kind of second guess yourself. Is it really my kid's fault? Is it my fault? You know what I mean? Versus, you know, should I question the validity of this claim, especially again going back to the quote that Kim started our time off with, as it kind of alluded to parents being the biggest influencer. We're also the ones that know our kids better than anybody. So we know what our kids will do, what they can't do, what they are capable of. I will say this. I know this may feel a little morbid, but every time there was a person doing a mass shooting, or doing something crazy, if they ever talked to the parents never said, "I didn't see this coming." People know they kid, good or bad. I'm just using it as an extreme example. We know our children, and so but racism has a way of even causing you to second guess the things that you know, like the back of your hand. And so I don't want us to belittle that, because that's a part of how we advocate better, is one, we have to be sensitive to the realities of where we are, and addressing those things so we can overcome it.
And then being able to like really accept that you're going to have flashbacks. When things happen to your kid, you're going to remember that I've been here before, and you have to work really hard to make sure that those things don't color the way that you advocate for your kid. I know, Carrie, this is going to be interesting for you and Keegan. You actually are in oh my goodness, I almost want to say a better space, because of the fact that you are a white woman raising a Black child, you will be able to advocate for your child in a way that it takes us more effort to advocate for our children. So so just keep listening. We'll have more for everyone. And then the other one, for the other outcome for race related stress is helicopter parenting, is when you monitor your kid in fear. And so you hold your child really tight and you don't let them go, and you're making sure that nothing touches them. You know, you want them to have this absolutely protective life, and you don't want anything to happen to them. And so you hover, and that is not healthy. So none of these ways are healthy for us as parents, and also for our children. That's why it's really important for us moms and dads to get healthy, to recognize how racism has impacted us, and get some therapy, because therapy works.
And I'll just add, in terms of the helicopter parenting, the danger of that is, as Kim aforementioned, you will want to protect your kids so much that you will actually stunt their growth, because we all know a lot of ways that we grow is through experiencing a certain level of failures, going through certain hardships, that educates you in a way that is so unique and so effective in us growing. And we do have to, and I think it doesn't matter what ethnic origin of the parent. The reality is we have to prepare our kids for a world that is unjust.
Yes.
We live in an unjust world. We're trying to raise vibrant human beings that we expect to be assets to society, in a society that is not healthy. So we have to prepare them for that to a level of degree before they go out into this world. And the world is a complete 180 to the bubble they lived in, and then they can't handle it.
That's a good point. Children, and how our children are experiencing race-related stress, is that they are sometimes feeling isolated in the school that they're. They feel like they don't feel safe talking to their teachers. They don't feel protected in the school space. They don't have the skills or the tools to manage hearing microaggressions. So they just don't know how that, thank you, Anita. They don't know how to address that when they hear it in real time. And then they also navigating unequal class treatment, unequal treatment within the classroom. And so you'll see those things happening for children who are also experiencing the same stress that we experience as adults. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Or comments?
Comments?
Concerns?
I'll just like our son is in we have a seventh grader in a new school this year,
Mhm.
predominantly white school, and just I don't know, like the school he was at prior, we just didn't feel was challenging him enough academically as he heads into high school, and it was a really diverse school that we left. And so, like I said, just kind of that, I don't know if it's a culture shock he's experienced now here in this school year. But like I said, no real issues last year. And now with the change, like I said, there's, these issues are arising. We talked with the principal today. And so just, I don't know, and I don't know, my wife can maybe speak to this a little bit too, but just, I don't know, what is the trade-off? Like, what do you factor in when putting your child in one of these new spaces or a white space?
Man, that's so good.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I'll start off by answering it like this, just to share a similar narrative from my family. So one side of my family is highly educated, college, postgraduate kind of history and narrative. And I'll never forget this big debate between my aunt and my cousin about should she go to Howard or go to Northwestern. So my aunt graduated cum laude Northwestern, went into the business world, made a gajillion dollars, and was a Black woman, proud of her ethnic origin, the whole 9 yards. And she did not originally want my cousin to go to Howard. She wanted her to go to what she thought, and I think this is where you alluded to, Chris, the school that will put her in access with the people of power, so she could be successful in life. My cousin was like, I got my whole life to deal with white folks. Give me 4 years where I can be around my people and be empowered, and and the whole night. So my point is, that's the heart of the tension that you're trying to address, because there you can see the validity in both sides, right? And so what's better? And I think ultimately you do have to reconcile. There's going to be some trade-offs. It won't be a win-win.
Yeah.
And so it's just like we have to be intentional, depending on which role we take. How do we compensate for those losses that we won't have in that ideal situation? So for example, if you're at this, let's just use like the school, whatever the school is that your child just transferred to, and so is lacking that diversity, is lacking that sense of community. What are some ways that as a parent or as parents we could create spaces for them to have that, if it's not directly in the school? We've kind of had in the church that I pastor, it's a very multi-ethnic church. We also have had parents in our school. Some of them did homeschooling, but they were intentional to make play dates to compensate, because they don't have the normal, homeschool kids don't have a lunchtime where they can hang out with their friends and have water cooler conversation, right? They have to be intentional about saying, okay, this is their reality. How do I compensate for what this reality does not give them, so that they can be as well-rounded and holistic as possible? So I think at the end of the day, absolutely, you got to do what you discern is best for your household and for your kids. But there's going to be those trade-offs. How do we give our kids what we need? Watch this as we decide, because I think that's what we learn from our experience, is that yes, there may be a school that on paper educationally is more sound, can open up more doors for our kids, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. But if this school even has an ounce of the potential to diminish my exact child, diminish my exact child, or impact them in a way that's harmful, I have to intentionally decide, okay, I need to create a lane to advocate for my child if I choose to keep them in this space.
Mhm.
Because education is key. Education is viable and important, but so is our child's well-being. And at the end of the day, and then what we're seeing in our society now, if you're educated, the doors are going to open, irregardless of the school. The doors are going to open, but we want to make sure that our kids are not only getting the education that they deserve, and that's a whole nother conversation about the reality and the need of educational equity, because you shouldn't have to choose. It should be every school is getting the same thing, but we know that ain't the case. But
That's
having
true.
said that, I think we as parents, and I'm gonna just say us, I'm not gonna even say you, brother. I'm gonna just say me, because I'll shame myself. I have been culpable of being willing to sacrifice a lot in the idea that this is gonna give my kid a better education. And we've had to learn their emotional and social well-being is equally, if not more important, than where they go to school in this day and time.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a long answer to say, I think you have to be intentional about weighing the cost of the decision and proactively, not waiting to react, but proactively saying, okay, I got to play chess with this. If my kid goes to school A, that means I got to do 1, 2, 3. If they go to such and such and such, because the alternate could have been, let me keep them in a school that's socially pliable and healthy for them. But ain't nobody stopping me from enrolling them into some extracurricular educational activity or giving them some supplemental educational opportunities. The same way there's AAU ball, the same way that there's music lessons, there are programs that will say my kid needs another layer of education, that when they get ready to go to these colleges, get ready to go to something else, regardless of where they graduate from, when they got this extra paper going with them, it's going to hold the same kind of weight. You know what I'm saying? So I just think we just have to be intentional about weighing the cost of the choices that we make. And that's key. And I'm glad you asked that, because we do have those decisions that we make for our kids, depending on their age, that will impact them. You want to add something to that?
No, I actually CJ had a comment.
Oh.
Did you want to talk about your comment?
Oh, I see that point.
And I think that was kind of what you was alluding to about the education equity.
Yeah, I think it was said. It's a challenge of having. So I've been dealing with in education for a long time. People always ask me, where should I send my kids? Right. And so it's always this challenge, and it's not unique to this area, though it's more predominant in an area that does not have a large community of color, right? Where your local school is not always a good school, right?
Yes,
and
sir.
So for parents who have resources and can choose other schools, you are weighing, and knowingly so in a lot of cases, you're weighing the idea of, I want a better education for my child.
Right.
Because as an adult, I see the long-term success part of it, right?
Yes, sir.
Access to doors it can open, all these things. But we often then are recognizing we are going to put our child in harm's way, right? And this is exactly what you were saying. And I think knowing that it's tough, right? Because there's going to be moments where, and I think Chris, we kind of spoke a little bit before, there's going to be similar to your story that you two shared. And we had the same thing with my son. He went to Aviation High School, and we had to go to that school several times and talk to folks about different things, right? And he's in a household, we had these conversations all the time, and things was happening to him, and he didn't realize what was happening to him. Right?
Wow.
And so we had to go in and have the conversation, and it's tough, because I think my son academically, he's off to college, he's at a really good college, but again, it's a predominantly white institution. but it's very predominantly white. It's even more predominantly white than predominantly white institutions. There are 40 Black people in that school.
Ooh.
Okay, so there's a raw number. It's not like 3%, 4%. I can give you a raw number of the number.
One,
so-
2, 3.
Yeah, you can count. And so it's a challenge for me to watch
Yeah.
my son. And we don't have to debate what Blackness is or isn't, but
Exactly.
there's spaces to which there's experiences that I think as a collective, a lot of us hone in on.
Yeah.
That he doesn't have that, right? His friend circle isn't a familiar friend circle to me, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so so the other kind of conversations we're having with him and have to have with him is you can't do everything they're doing.
Mm.
But it's not always fair to him because we put him there. He didn't choose, he didn't wake up and say, Mommy, Daddy, put me over here. We chose this for him, but now we put him in scenarios to which it's like, yeah, you can have that friend circle, son, but you're still a Black boy. And so when they out doing whatever they doing, and if something happens, you're going to be the one that's going to catch unfair brunt of whatever the backlash to it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
those are the tough conversations that we've had, that you had to have. But unfortunately, as parents, that's a lot of what we weigh
Mhm.
is, what harm, because, if you do it at any age, or even as adults, we're challenging our workspace often to manage the white space. But we
Yeah.
put our 7-year-old, our 8-year-old, our 10-year-old in that environment to which even we struggle with. So what are the expectations for them to handle that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, it's just kind of similar to what you were saying. That was my comment. So, and I, like I said, I've been in education for a long time. So people always ask me as if I got the answer, right? What about this school? What about that school? And it's like, every experience is going to be unique to that person, to that family, to that child.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to say. I can tell you my experiences. I can tell you, look at who the leadership is in the building, have the conversation with the leadership. But it's also, leadership ain't there forever, right? Like they come and go too.
That's true.
So
That's true.
just understand that wherever you put your child, that you have to be part of the educational process and all of that. And that means everything. That's the social, that's the academic piece, right?
Yeah,
You have to be there. And I'll stop at this, but we tend to, as parents, when they get closer to high school, kind of pull back and kind of let them go. There's places and times where we should do that because they need to grow and develop.
Right.
But there's also spaces where we still have to protect, not in the helicopter way, but in a way because they really, I think sometimes they really don't even know what's going on.
No, they don't. I have to piggyback that, CJ. That was so powerful. Just in the last thing that you said to reiterate our point, and it really is unique. You said something about the scenarios where like it's even amongst their peers, like they can, they're doing things you think they can get away with it, but you can't. Way we've dealt with that was more so from a 30,000-foot view in the aspect of just teaching them. And I think I agree with you 200%. There are some areas where we still have to protect. And I believe that comes in sometimes it's not about, at least for us, it's not necessarily always about what they can get away with or not, because we need to teach you what's right and wrong. I don't care what it look like they get away with. Here's why their behavior is out of order beyond the injustice of our society, our dysfunctional society. Here's why you shouldn't be doing that behavior no way. It's disrespectful. It's whatever the situation is, but you get what I'm saying. The principle is to try to teach them, this is why this is not behavior to envy. Don't do that. Here, because it looks like they're getting away with it now, even in a dysfunctional society. But here's how it hurts who they are and the person and the person of integrity that all parents hope our kids grow up to be. Here's why allowing that behavior to handle doesn't work. So avoid it for those reasons. But you're right. And at the same time, you have to make that choice. You have to, because I get it. You know, we want our kids to have the best education, and if we have the wherewithal and the means to give that to our kids, we almost be fools to not give it to them. We just got to be able to compensate the alternative of that, the side effect of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That goes back to the question, bro. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what, as CJ put it, what are we as parents proactively willing to do to compensate with whatever decision we make?
Yeah.
That, because you're right, that we put our kids in those positions to make sure that they are as holistically healthy as possible.
Carrie, I see you turned your camera on. Did you have a question?
Yeah, well, so CJ, actually, I was thinking about this, and then CJ said something that just something I worry about with Keegan, especially because I think he benefits from some of our privilege now when he's with us more than some other kids who are other Black kids often then have seen some of these things and had opportunities to see them with parents and maybe process them in a way that I worry more so that Keegan won't recognize these things. And, you know, especially now how young he is, we hear really weird amounts of things about school. And so like, I feel that temptation to be the helicopter parent, because I'm so worried that some of these things will happen and he won't be processed or have any idea what's happening, and we'll never hear any indication. And then until it's become, you know, a big issue, like I want to be proactive and try to support him. And I don't know. Are there, I guess maybe my question is, like, are there ways that you've like tried to prepare your kids when they're, you know, just like before things are happening, like talking about things? And I don't know, it's hard too, because I don't want to like tell him like this is going to happen to you and have him be.
Sure. No, I think you want to go first.
Yeah, I think that there are some things that will happen to him. Just for the simple fact of the color of his skin, he is going to experience some things. I don't know how traumatic those are. I don't know how gentle those things are. They're just just a person engaging with the world. He's gonna have all of these different experiences. But because he's a Black boy, he's gonna have experiences that you and his dad will never have. And your responsibility as his parent is to prepare him for those things.
Yeah.
And it can always be, I don't know if this is going to happen to you, but this is where we live in this world that these things happen to people that look like you.
Absolutely. If I may piggyback that, it goes back to something I said earlier. If we don't prepare them, the pain is only going to be worse when they experience it. So the tension then is, how do we prepare them and not be the very people that kill their hope or kill their dream, right? And I think for us, one of the things that we have done, unfortunately, this world gives us more than enough proactive ammunition proactive examples to use to create conversation, whether it's our middle child, Abby, who I feel like is a healthy feminist in the making. When Hillary lost to Trump, she came to us and said, how did the bad man beat the lady? That created an opportunity for me and for Kim in particular, because there's the conversation we have together, CJ, and then there's the one Kim had with her daughter. All right, now let me really the same way with the boys. Okay, I'm gonna keep it rated Jesus in front of their mama. Then now let me take you out here and really give you the what fuck. So I'm just saying that to say our society, unfortunately, gives us as parents, if we're sensitive and discerning enough opportunity where it's not a situation that they're in directly, but we could use it for a conversation. Hey, do you know this is going on? We hear all the time that, especially in this I'm still almost scared to say post-pandemic, even though the world says it's post-pandemic. But in this, whatever stage we are in the pandemic, all of the racial unearthing since 2020 has given us more than enough ammunition to say, hey, these things have happened. Let's talk about it. We've literally seen schools fumble miserably on the news trying to say how to talk to your kids about race, how to do this, how to do that. So it's even letting us know that there are plenty of ways that we can take these kind of external issues that haven't hit the house directly as a way to prepare them for what may happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen. It's preparing you for what may. When I recently got my motorcycle license, the first 6 hours in the classroom is scaring the living daylights out of you. Here's what may happen. We pray it. You never know what it's like to be thankful that you got the kind of jacket you wear to protect your body. But we got to prepare you. Here's what may happen. You know, so I think in the same way, I think if we just are proactive enough, loving enough to introduce these realities to our children. It's not to scare them, it's not to say you don't dream, it's not to say that you don't live life as big as you possibly can. It's just more so of saying, here are some things that have happened in this world. And here and these things still have a high probability of happening to you. And we will always be here to protect you. We will always be here to provide for you. But just in case there's something that happens and mommy and dad are not around, we need you to be prepared and how to navigate this world so that you do not forget that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you are beautiful and wonderful and excellent, irregardless to the dysfunction that exists in this world. And I think those are the best things we can do as parents. You know,
and I think it's really important how you keep saying a dysfunction world, because that makes it, because we're normal. The way that we're living our lives, we're normal. We're loving each other. We're respecting each other. We're loving each other enough to train
That's
our
good.
children
Yeah.
how to exist in this world. But this world is upside down. And so we're always saying what you're experiencing out there, that's wrong. What is happening here is right. This is how, and I almost feel like that's like the best way for us to love our children is to give them tools. So when they hit something, when they face something, they can go back and be like, okay, mom told me when this happens, this is how I need to react to it. And that's kind of how, that's how all the Black parents I know who are healthy and whole, they are training our children. We're letting our children know, hey, when you get pulled over by the police, these are one of the things that you need to know how to function in that. When you walk out the store and you don't have no receipt and somebody, and you know, now you don't want to buy no bag. So, you know, you don't have no receipt, you don't have a bag for your items, and you're walking out of the store. That's one thing I tell my kids, you always get a bag, it's 8 cents, and you always make sure you have your receipt. So these are the things that we have to prepare. We hope that no one ever stops you. But if somebody ever stops you, you got a receipt to prove that you have something, that you purchased them, and it's in a bag. And so those kind of things, that's how I feel like we love our children, is to prepare them for what may happen so they can function. It won't break them down and they won't fall apart if something happens to them. Okay, we're going to move on because we only got 15 more minutes, you all. 15 more minutes. We still got 2 whole slides to get through.
Not 2.
2 whole slides.
Okay.
All right. So biases. And so our next slide that we're going to talk about is biases, because the biases are the things that destroy, right? The way people think about us, these automatic assumptions that they have about us based on the way we look, how we sound, the clothes that we wear, all of this. What we do know that everybody has biases, no matter who you are. So me as a Black parent going into a school with all white teachers, I already have a bias of that these people are going to be racist and treat my son horribly. Or I'm walking into it like that. These white teachers could be looking at my child and looking at us, and they, you know, and say that, you know, we're from a broken home because we're Black. If we decided to send our kids to public school. So, I mean, it's just like all of these biases, these things happen, and they impact the way that we interact with each other daily. And so this is nothing that you think you can turn on and turn off based on the people that you talk to. that is an illusion. Whatever your biases is, they will sink into everything that you do and how you function in this daily world. So here is what I found is a good way to like bust biases wide open when you're dealing with white educational spaces like this is number one, let your teacher know in the beginning that you are 100% invested in your child's education, his emotional, mental, and physical well-being, and you will hold these teachers accountable for what happens in the classroom.
Yeah.
That has to happen. I walk in first day of school, I have this conversation, and I let them know, me and Michael Thomas here, we don't play. You got our kids for 8 hours. This is what our expectation is for 8 hours. He got his set of expectations. You got your set of expectations. And we will hold you accountable for that.
I will say it like this. It is not our intent to strike fear in the teacher.
Yes.
But it is our goal, Carrie, to make sure that they have a healthy reverence of our particular child and knowing that they are not by themselves. And I will also say this to say, because whether it's today or people watching this on demand later, I also want to be real sensitive to understand that even Kim and I, as CJ alluded to, some of what we saying comes from some level of privilege. We believe we made some choices earlier on in our life that led to our marriage that has allowed us to be faithful and trying to create as healthy of a home environment as possible. Both parents in the same home, we're both together. We love each other, we love them. And that even of itself creates a lot of privilege and opportunity that parents like what Kim and I grew up in. Me and Kim both grew up in a predominantly single parent household. And mom is out there working 2 jobs, trying to figure it out to provide a good life. And a lot of times kids are just kind of, latchkey kids. So I'm saying all that to say, irregardless of if it's a 2-parent household or a 1-parent household, you set the temperature.
Yeah.
With that teacher, they are to be the thermostat, but you set the temperature. They only supposed to read what you set. So even if it's you set those terms, what Kim is talking about, on a standard that's realistic, so that teacher knows you proactively, you didn't wait till something happened. You proactively said, here's when I'm reachable. Here's when I expect to hear from you. Here's what you can expect from me, because we are in this together. So it's not setting unrealistic expectations. It's knowing what you are able to do and communicating it to that teacher. So for no other reason, they know this child is not by themselves.
Yep, exactly. And I think one of the things that sometimes we forget is that we're tax-paying citizens. And because we are tax-paying citizens, we are entitled for good education, quality education for our children. And sometimes we don't. We timidly walk into these classrooms and we accept what we get. But that you don't have to, because you are tax-paying citizens. You are empowered by the law to advocate for your child.
Yeah.
One of the things I also say is attend parent-teacher conferences. I know nobody likes to go to those things. I hate going to parent-teacher conferences.
Look at CJ.
I hate them. I've been to 1 billion parent-teacher conferences over my years of parenting, and I don't like. They're long. They're just lines along, just messed up. But going to these parent-teacher conferences allows you to get just updates about your kid, and also, more importantly, allows you to build relationships with the teachers. And this helps. This is another way that helps that bust those biases wide open. It allows them to be able to see you as a person, as a parent, not as a Black person. Also, question, you all who know me, Chris and CJ, y'all know I always have a ton of questions. So I have a list of questions for teachers. I want to know all of this. You gonna be my kid is gonna be in your class. I ask them about teaching methodologies. How do you teach? I ask them about their experience with working with boys of color. Have you had any experience about that? Oh, and if you haven't, what are you going to do to change that? Does the school offer you training for dealing with kids of a different culture? I said, what are you going to do to make sure you're at your best so you can come strong for my son? So I asked those questions. You about to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say two
Mhm.
quick reminders based upon what Kim just said. Remember what we said at the beginning of this program. We are not experts.
We're not experts.
This
This is
that's
fun.
why this is free 99. We are not experts. At the same time, everything we are sharing, we have learned through traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So we have allowed our experiences to
Mhm.
make us wiser,
Mhm.
to make us sharper,
Mhm.
so that we can better.
Mhm.
I feel like advocating for children is an ongoing evolution. You just
Mhm.
get better
Mhm.
and better and better at it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah,
throw those
no,
two.
I think that's really important. Like, look, all of these things are based on what we learned from our experience with Gideon years ago. And so the another thing that I think is really important for you to ask is discipline policy in the classroom. So do the first thing something happened, they kick the kid out, or they get warnings? You want to know all of this, so you will be able to be a great advocate for your kid. And I'll make sure your kid understands that these are protocols, classroom protocols that you expect them to follow, unless they're being in danger or anything like that. But you want them to follow these protocols.
So I'm going to say this. I got to piggyback this because it's connected to our story.
Mhm.
So that was one of the probably the most angry I have been in this process was when we became aware that they was literally letting our child walk the hallway.
Mhm.
Like for example, I mean, like, you don't even have a detention. Like, you don't have something where this child can be in a fixed learning
classroom
environment.
somewhere.
You just let my child roam the hall, and you did not inform me as the parent to either say I accept this or not, because I said this is beyond discipline. You are literally not letting my child learn. You know what I'm saying? And that was just so deplorable.
Mhm.
Like I said, we put the fear of God in them after that. And like it say in scripture, and they never said another word again, or it never happened again. Because they saw the other side of me that nobody wants to see. Because that was just so out of order.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary
Mhm.
about these scenarios. If me or Kim were a single parent, if we were too busy to know, our child would just be roaming these halls. Not no, and that kind of dysfunction, this is why it's important, will become normalized to them. They will start thinking, oh, I guess this is what school is. I walk the halls. Or you know, because nobody said nothing different. And our concern was, and where it stopped, because they knew a potential lawsuit was coming. Why is he the only one roaming the hall? If he talking, that means he talking to somebody. How come it ain't two kids roaming the hall? You know what I'm saying? It was so many layers of injustice, laziness, and trying to throw away my kid who's actually brilliant.
I agree with you.
Well, I know. Strike that last part for the record. That may sound like, oh, there go that helicopter parent leaking. Every parent think they kid a genius. So, you know.
So, we are we want to say these are all just different ideas that we have done, that we have learned, that we move forward in using. We do not know if these ideas will work for you. I want to give that disclaimer. We are not, they work for us.
They work for us.
But we, our goal moving forward, one of the key things that we have learned moving forward is that we are always working on the heart of our teachers and wanting to change them into anti-racist teachers, allies to the things, to injustices. And so that is always our intention moving forward to that. Anybody have a question? Okay, go ahead. No.
Let's ask questions, but I have one last story to share, and I'll make it quick. But I want to wait to see if there's questions or comments.
Hi, Thomases. This is Joanna. I know Krista kind of mentioned me earlier, but this is really timely just given the events that we have going on with our son at his school.
Okay.
The trade-offs, there's definitely a trade-off. We chose the route of sending him to the school with more rigor than the school that he was at, knowing the kind of the situations that he was, or kind of knowing the diversity. But we also know a few other parents or students that go there, and then actually one of my friends is like on the board. And so the incident that we had recently, we're just finding that we had a meeting with the principal today. And one other thing that I wanted to call out was that one of the things that he said that didn't dawn on me is kids coming out of the pandemic. So there's white fragility. These kids coming out of the pandemic are even more fragile. It has added that being home has added an additional layer onto that. And so my son being like almost 6 feet tall is like scaring. Apparently, I got the word aggressive too.
Yeah.
He's intimidating people just by his own self. And so I kind of had to drill in on the aggressiveness, and I was just like, as a Black mom, that's a trigger. And Chris thankfully said the part about, we can't have those labels on our children because that's how kids end up getting killed.
Yes.
And so I was glad I didn't have to say that and look like and be the Black mom saying that. But it's just, I will say that the principal we were talking to, he did acknowledge he has room for growth also. But I don't know, it's just one of those things that I think we're going to have to monitor. But my thing is, I think our son has really high emotional intelligence. He doesn't hold grudges. He kind of understands what's going on. And I just have really real conversations with them. Like, we just have really honest conversations. Like, we literally talked about the white fragility. I told him he needs to like monitor himself and like just be a little bit more self-aware, but not to protect them. It's just more of a strategy. But I don't want him to ever feel like he has to shrink himself for anybody else.
That's right.
That's right.
No,
I can
agree with that more.
Yeah, I mean, I can go on. I mean, like Kim, when you were talking earlier, like I'm just like my and I'm not an anxious person, but my anxiety levels were just like rising, just hearing you tell the story. And like I could go on top on everything that was said today. I'll cut it off there. I will say to the other mom on the call, one of the things that we do is we watch lots of movies with our kids. We do talk to them about the things going on in the news, but like the Colin Kaepernick movie, I couldn't get through the Central Park 5, but we did start watching that with them. I couldn't get through it though. First episode. But we attempt to watch those with the kids and then have discussions about them. So that's another thing, in addition to, just like you guys are saying, the news gives us plenty ammunition. So
man, you brought back a flood of memories bringing up that Central Park 5.
I couldn't watch that either.
It was hard. So we have an ongoing conversation in our household about the things that are hard to watch. There's two viewpoints in our household. There's one that says we totally get it. It's hard because it like you said, it triggers your own trauma. And that's not healthy. You know what I mean? So we want to respect that. And then there's a other part that kind of alludes to what we've been saying earlier about the importance of preparing our kids. If they don't know how bad it can get, Lord help them if God forbid they find themselves in that situation. So but that's a judgment call. So I totally honor and respect that. one thing I would say, because I really, first of all, appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said. We totally get it. The way that they label our kids, and what it really boils down to, if we're being brutally honest, which I think we should be able to do at 8:12 on a Thursday night, is they're trying to dehumanize our children.
Yeah.
They're trying to make them a it instead of remembering that they're a person. And it's these passive aggressive microaggressions that does that to justify why they would harm our child, whether physically or educationally or emotionally, because they're not dealing with their own trauma and their own fragility and their own jealousy towards Black people. So last thing I'll share is our last situation involving Gideon. This teacher called. First of all, let me just be honest. Y'all can judge me if you want to. Carrie knows me well enough, so I feel like this is safe company. But I'm the kind of individual, if I don't recognize your phone number on my cell phone, especially in this post-political where everybody and their mama calling me talking about you gonna vote for this or that, my thought is if it's important, you're gonna leave a voicemail. So one particular day, I got an unusual amount of these calls from a number I didn't know. And so much so around 7:30 at night, we're trying to have dinner. I said, well, let me see what this is. Maybe it's an emergency, because even a crazy person ain't calling this many times. I answer the phone, y'all, and it's some teacher from Gideon School. So I'm like, so this person is acting like this is a code red. They got to talk to me and Kim. We pulled away from dinner. We trying to figure out what happened. And basically it boiled down to Gideon was having a conversation with some of his friends.
Yeah, he got pushed. You remember?
He got pushed. Gideon didn't push.
Gideon was the one who got hit.
Gideon is the victim. Gideon's the one who got physically touched. And this teacher's trying to make it sound like something is wrong and this, that, and the third. So I said, so we corrected him. I mean, me and Kim tag teamed him. It was like, he called the wrong ones, Jack. We was like waiting for it. So after we corrected him and showed him his racism and his microaggressions, then I said, you didn't even respect the house enough. You calling me at 7:30 after you failed to professionally leave a voicemail. You could have left a voicemail 3 hours ago. I would have checked and said, oh, this Gideon School. Let me call back and see what's going on. This dude calling and just kept calling and not leaving a voicemail, not saying, hey, this is the school, da, 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 da. So I had to read him his rights about like, man, let me tell you how you out of order. And now I'm going to have a meeting with your boss to figure out why you so dysfunctional. That's when it is the backpedaling. Oh, never mind. No, too late. No, stay on the line. We're gonna get this squared away right now. And so what am I saying? And after that, we had a conversation with Gideon. We shared with him how we advocated, and yet we made sure that he was accountable in all his actions. So I'm saying it's a both and that's why Kim and I had to heal from that imposter syndrome to say, no, we demand better than that. Not only are you out of order for calling my house is late, the reason for it don't match your intensity. So what's really going on? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, it was just so, and then it was like you were saying, Javon, it was like what you were saying. Then it was this pushback of, oh, I'm sorry, you right. It was this illumination. And that's the point. These people don't know what they're doing. So we can't just assume because they have title this or alphabet that after they name that they experts. They don't know what they're doing. And so we have to advocate because we know instinctively when something doesn't feel right, when something feels toxic, when something feels dysfunctional. We have a sense of it, and we got to call that out. And 9 times out of 10, our
Mhm.
feeling and perspective is accurate.
Mhm.
And now that it puts that person in a position to readjust and reassess how they come at you.
Mhm.
So that way they don't think that they can do that again. I
Yeah.
pray in the name of Jesus that how we reacted will make that teacher think 2-3 more times before he call other parents of color with some foolishness, and it ain't right.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and ever since Gideon has moved, ever since this particular school has lost all of their people of color on the teacher level and also the administrator, we get phone calls at least once every other week. And most of the time, it's something that does not have to do with Gideon. He's just in a space that something is happening and he's in that space. Then they're calling us and it's a problem for us.
Let me correct with great caution, because it's rare that my wife is wrong.
Uh-huh.
I do want to just add a correction. That did happen before that last story I told you. After that, now we don't get no calls.
Oh, yeah.
Now nobody calls us.
Yeah, that's true.
Now they just,
Yeah, that's true.
he's wonderful. Even
Yeah.
if they lying, he wonderful. Ain't nobody doing nothing. So
but one of the things that we talked about earlier about how you have power as a citizen
yes,
in public schools and even private schools, because you're paying private schools, you are paying for this. And public schools, we are taxpaying citizens. We walk in there. I mean, I feel like white people walk into these spaces and they have this sense of like, I pay my taxes and this is what are my expectations and this is this. I mean, we need to walk in with that same kind of boldness into our schools. Okay, so I just want to respect everybody's time. So here it is. Here is how we say how to navigate these hallways in white educational spaces. We have 7 ways that you can use the things that we have used in different scenarios throughout the last just maybe the last 4 or 5 months when our school has went back to majority white.
We're gonna run through this quickly, y'all.
So the first, speak up, speak often. I know Javon and Chris, you are already doing this. Janelle and CJ, y'all know, it's just if you feel like your kid is being treated unfairly, address it immediately in that space. Because one of the things that because sometimes we all often don't recognize how it feels, what feels wrong, or we don't have the language to put towards the feeling. And so we walk away and then we come back. That works too. But it's so much more powerful and impactful if you're in that space and you call out that whatever that is, and you let them know in this space, you are being disrespectful. And let me tell you how you're being disrespectful in this space. And then call it out, because 9 times out of 10, they don't know how to respond. And that is your what. You can get them right there. The second one is look out for poor communication. If your school is not communicating well, this hinders how you can get engaged with your teacher and with the school administration. So you want to look out for poor communication and figure that thing out. Right now in our school, now that's what my struggle is right now, is poor communication. All the alerts that we're hearing is just not working out. And so I'm constantly talking to them about that. The third one is don't be afraid to outsource. Javon and Chris, outsource. Organizations like ACE, putting your kids in organizations where they do get that kind of community. That is great. Second one up is show up when and how you can. So there's a lot happening to us as parents. We are working, we are shopping, we are doing sports, we are hanging out with friends and family. There's just so much in our spectrum of parenthood. Show up when you can and be kind to yourself when you can't. That's it. Remember to be kind to yourself. You can't do everything. Just pick and choose what you can do well, what you can show up. And then the other things you're just going to have to leave on, what is that term? The cutting room floor. You're just going to have to leave it. The fifth one is encourage self-advocacy. So give your kids the tools to advocate for themselves in those spaces. Just really quick, we have tons of stories, you all. A little quick story. We gave Gideon tools to self-advocate for him, especially his 6th grade, because he was having so much problems. We was just like, these are the things you want to look out for. These are the things you want to alert us to know if it's happening. Gideon skipped that part of alerting us when stuff was happening, and he was calling out racism left and right. Teachers was calling me up talking about, your son called me a racist, and I'm like, well, you know what, are you? I mean, how can you tell somebody you're talking to, if they feel like you're being a racist, then you're being a racist. That's how they're perceiving you. So we had all of these kind of conversations, to the point these teachers got so upset that we had to tell Gideon to stop calling them a racist. Just simply tell us if they're exhibiting racist behavior, and we will address it. And so so he advocated for himself. We're proud of him. Call that thing out when you see it. But the other thing what we had to also be concerned of is retribution. We didn't want him calling out that stuff, and for those teachers to come back and do revenge kind of stuff with him, just be horrible. And so that's what we had to deal with after that. That was the next phase of stuff, when teachers were just, y'all got to kid me on the flip side, and I could tell y'all everything was happening. And then the 6th thing is focus on your child's mental health. You all, as we was doing some research, one of the things that we found is suicide rates among Black children has risen 70%, 70% since the 90s. Our kids are feeling the stress of functioning in this world the way that it is now. And we have to be conscious, we have to be sensitive, and we have to acknowledge when things are too much for them. And I know I am old school, my husband is old school. We are used to pushing through. And I do not, and that's probably wasn't healthy for us when we were younger kids, for our parents to push us through. And now our kids, we need to recognize sometimes they need a mental health day. They just let them stay home and sleep and play video games. Sometimes they need that day. We just need to be aware that those things are happening to them, because we push them through our own, because we're experiencing trauma. And we don't want people to think that we let our kids stay home, because that's all part of the brokenness and the biases that people have about Black people. We make them go to school. We just need to let those things go. I'll always let my kids have a mental health day. If they say they don't feel like going to school, I'm like, you're a straight A student, stay home, chill. You can go to school tomorrow. The next thing that's so important, the last one, you all, is build your child's confidence. And I know everybody on this line, this workshop is already doing this good work. Mike had said earlier, make sure you remind your kids that they are wonderfully made, that they're important, that are beautiful, that they are kind, just wonderful, amazing people. So when they do encounter things that are hurtful, racist comments, microaggressions, all of these things that are hurtful, they know that they can come back to you and it's a safe space. They know their home with their parents is safe and secure. They know that their parents are acknowledging them. They know that this is not the totality of their life. This was happening to them. This is just one layer of being a Black person. They are experiencing that one layer, but this is all these other layers that are happening, and all of these other layers are wonderful, and they can go home and get some of that. You want to add it? Oh, okay.
We added it all in the chat.
Oh, teamwork. So you all, do y'all have any questions? Because any questions, I'm happy to stay. We're happy to stay to answer any more questions, any more support, encouragement you need in this moment. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, thanks for that. I like the 7 tips that we need to either put that on a shirt or, just make sure we get that, so on our socials for ACE. And then just I think on your calendar, Kim, if we can do maybe when Gideon's going to make this college decision, we have that Northwestern versus Howard family debate on Zoom, and I think that would be pretty entertaining. Check that out.
Oh yeah.
Goodness.
Oh yeah.
Gideon is crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Gideon we thought our life would be easier as we get to the last one. He has been more work than a full-time job, let me tell you.
Ooh, Lord.
But I just want everybody to know that this work that we do as Black parents is not easy. It's just not easy work for us. And going to these spaces are anxiety heightened for us. They are anxiety heightened for our children. And if we can recognize that, if we're having anxiety, if we're flexing the way that we think and behave in these spaces, our kids just don't right now have the tools to be able to do that. They don't know how to be different in these spaces. And we don't want them to be different in these spaces, but we do want to empower them with the tools to be able to hold on to their own identity while they're in those spaces, so they can thrive and flourish and have better experiences than we have in our past.
Yeah. That's good. That's well
That's it.
said.
All right, y'all. That's it. Thank y'all for being such wonderful
Love you, Carrie. Appreciate you,
attendees
CJ.
to this workshop. We this is our jam, y'all. We love to talk about this anti-racist stuff. We can talk about this stuff all day. So
And it's just real. I feel encouraged just hearing Javon, everybody, just the realities that there is a deep resonating with shared narrative. Like we get it. We understand it's not just us in these silos. We get it. And Carrie, I would say this too. I know most of us, Chris, how old did you say your son was when she transferred schools? Seventh grade?
That's 12, right?
Yes. He's was 7 last year, he's 8th grade now, yeah.
Okay, all right.
13.
And then I think Miss Javon, she was talking about her son is a high school.
Same son.
Oh, same.
Same
Oh,
year.
Lord have mercy.
Same year.
Okay. Wait, 7th grade and he's 6 feet?
He's getting up there, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Just save my NBA ticket. Just save my ticket. That's all I'm gonna say. Save my ticket. But all that to say, Carrie, Keegan is young. And so I just want to encourage you, like you alluded to, some of these things may have not happened yet, and we pray they don't happen. But the reality is it's highly probable it will. And so I just want to encourage you. I think just you being in these spaces, absorbing, listening, being intentional is fantastic. You're setting you and Chris have already been doing a great job of being sensitive, even if it's aware of who you are in proximity to your child, and the ways that you protect him, and the ways that you recognize there are some things we got to prepare him for in this world, irregardless of what his last name is, irregardless of who his people are, because that's a part of loving him well. So I just want to, and it's interesting how the toxicity and injustice that happens in this country has a unique way of bringing us all together when at the end of the day we're parents raising Black children. And that our children are cognizant that they're Black, and they understand what that means, and they understand the beauty in that, and they also understand the broken harshness because of America that it puts them in vulnerable positions beyond their control. And so I just think that these spaces are needed, even for those who are considered the speakers. It has fueled my spirit to know that we are not alone in these battles and in these spaces. So let's stay together and stay connected. My wife make everything a song, y'all. Pray for me. She make everything a song.
Because life is music. I'm just
Okay.
playing. You all have a great evening. Thank y'all for being part of the Parent Cafe today. Oh, and parents, we are having our social, our parent social, holiday social on December 8th. We're at the Bola Laura, I think, and in Tukwila. So please be with us. Oh, and then we have a feedback form. So if you all Chris, could you put the feedback form in the link in the chat, and then if everybody can just click on that before
there
you
you go.
leave, that would be awesome, y'all. We appreciate it.
Please lie and say we did real good.
Yeah.
So if you
Y'all
all
did
can
good.
fill out.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
y'all. Thank y'all. Good night.
God bless. Wakanda
All right.
forever.
Good night.